Welcome to the Listening Lounge. I'm Abby, audiologist and business owner of Hobsonville Hearing. One of the best parts of my job is the incredible people I get to meet every day in the clinic. So once a month, I'm going to interview guests and share their unique stories. Now let's jump into this month's episode. Welcome to episode 6 of the Listening Lounge. It is my pleasure to have Minh Roh on the podcast today. Welcome, Minh.
Hi.
Hi, Minh. So Minh and I were actually in the same year at university, but Minh, you studied at the University of Auckland.
Yes.
Yeah.
How long ago was that? Too long.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah. I don't know.
And I feel like we're so young in terms of audiologists, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was a while ago.
That was a while ago. Yeah.
I think we finished in 2016.
Yeah. Started in 17.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Coming up on a decade, not
No,
far
don't
off.
say that.
I know. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Minh.
So my name's Minh. I am a Korean Kiwi. Been in New Zealand all my life, most of my life, and at the moment, actually, I am based in Switzerland.
That is so cool. I'm so jealous. But we're gonna talk a little bit more about that shortly. What got you into audiology?
Oh, good question. I actually couldn't tell you the whole story because I actually don't remember. But basically, I was in high school, doing like the Asian 5 because I'm an Asian.
Oh my god! Okay, tell us about that.
So the Asian 5. If you don't know, if you haven't been to high school in New Zealand, as you progress through your high school, you have to choose what kind of topics you want to specialize in. And the Asian 5 is like the 5 subjects that 95% of Asians seem to do in high school, which is maths, English, and the 3 sciences. and so being an Asian, I did the Asian 5. And then I followed my friends into biomedical science at the University of Auckland.
And were you planning on trying to become a doctor?
Oh, no. No.
Did your parents want you to be a doctor though?
Probably at the back of their minds. I mean, they...
Is that where the Asian 5 stems from? Its parents, right?
Usually it's the parental influence. They actually gave me money to like apply for the UMAT test.
So they were trying to bribe you?
Well, they told me to enroll for it, and I had no intention of applying for med, so I was like, free food for everyone. So no, I did not become a doctor.
I think you would have been a great doctor, actually.
Oh,
No?
The rosters and the schedules, I feel like...
Not enough time for eating out.
Work-life balance, so important for me. So I did my 3 years of biomedical science, and during the 3 years, I kind of ended up switching my major a bit. So I ended up doing a bit of physiology, which was my first major. And then I also picked up psychology because I was like, oh, that'll be an interesting topic. I want to read people's minds because obviously that's what I thought psychology would be.
I think everybody thinks there's like 250 people in the Psych 101 lecture, right? Everyone's
exactly.
I'm going to learn how to read
your
minds.
mind. Every time you tell them you do psychology, they're like, so what am I thinking?
Yeah.
They always say that, right? So I did those 2 majors, and as luck would have it, that was kind of the 2 prerequisite majors you needed to apply for the audiology program. And so I was like, well, I mean, I've got the prereqs. I think I've got the grades. So I applied. I got in. I enjoyed it.
It was quite competitive at that time, right?
Yeah.
Because...
Back in the days, it was pretty competitive.
Yeah.
I mean, still is today, of course.
Yeah.
But back then, it was a different type of like intake process as well. But I got in, and funnily enough, my GPA started to increase as I started audiology, which made me realize, oh, this is actually something I like.
Yeah.
And so, that's how I ended up being an audiologist. Yeah.
And what do you like about audiology?
I think audiology is really interesting because it is very technologically involved. But at the same time, you also have the people skills and the people interactions that make the job even more rewarding. Ultimately, it's helping people communicate better, and I think that's just such a rewarding part of our jobs. So, yeah.
It's definitely a true blend of art and science, which I think is where the physiology and psychology come in, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think, for me, I had a much more stronger physiology knowledge, but then you later realize there's so much more psychology involved in the whole patient care and the communication aspects that, you kind of underestimate when you first start the degree. So
Yeah, and there's people from all backgrounds who come into audiology. In the Canterbury program, there weren't those prerequisites, so you just had to have a degree of any sort. And so we had people with a music degree, we had people with education degrees. I mean, I had an arts degree, so I'm definitely more on the arts side rather than the science side. That was definitely not my strong point. So, but it's cool how it brings all of those different people into the field.
Yeah, same. I mean, same with ours. I mean, we did have obviously non-physiology psych majors as well, and it was really nice having them in the cohort because then you just learn so much from each other.
Yeah.
As you progress through the years as well.
Yeah, definitely. And so after you finished your degree, you worked at Dilworth in Te Atatu, right?
Yeah, so Dilworth Hearing in Te Atatu and Takapuna.
Yeah.
So that was my two Waitemata sites.
Yeah.
Which is where I live.
Yeah. And you had a bit of a fan club at Dilworth Te Atatu. I've seen quite
apparently.
a few of your patients and they just rave about you.
Oh dear. Oh.
So Dilworth is a sort of mixture of adults and peds.
Yeah.
So what was it like?
It was really fun. I mean, it's a big private company, I guess. And so, you work seeing a lot of adults, but it's really nice because at Dilworth you also get to see a lot of the children as well. So doing like pediatric assessments. I also was lucky enough to dabble into APD, a bit of wax removal, a bit of tinnitus. And so you kind of learn to do almost everything, a jack of all trades, basically. And, even though you don't explicitly do those appointments in isolation, you kind of do them all together. It makes you more confident and makes you more capable of giving your patients a better standard of care. So that was really nice to be able to learn those skills, as well as kind of the supervisors there, like my colleagues that I met at Dilworth. Like to this day, we still hang out. We talk about a lot of intense cases when we get questions and things like that. And so it's a really nice camaraderie that we made back in the quote unquote good old days.
And how did you find your experience as an audiologist as an Asian Kiwi?
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, back when we were doing our degrees, there weren't many of us, I should say. And ever since starting working in the Te Atatu, Takapuna region, we do have a lot of kind of Korean people that live in the region. And so as you kind of continue to work, people found out that you work there. They start referring their friends to you, or you meet GPs that are Korean and they want a Korean audiologist to see their patient. And so you get a lot of these kind of off the side referrals. And that was really challenging because I've never done audiology in Korean before. And so before the appointment, I always remember myself giving 30 minutes to search up all these audiology terms. Like, what's an error fiction in Korean? Like, what's a hearing loss in Korean? And kind of, obviously super anxious at delivering that to the Korean adults. But then obviously get better over time.
That's so cool. And I think it's a testament to how much we need more diversity in our audiology cohort, right?
Yeah,
because
definitely.
it's the same goes for every culture. Were you subjected to any racism?
Ooh, I'm trying to think back. Probably not. I mean, not that I have vividly remembered.
Yeah,
I think.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, because I've been here long enough, like my accent's not too off the grid. I know the culture. I can identify with a lot of different cultures now, of course. And so because of that, I don't feel like I've kind of explicitly gotten that.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah. So
cool.
my experience has been really, really
positive.
Good.
Yeah, awesome. And then you moved to the green side.
Oh, the green side, yes. The dark green side, the light green side.
You went over to wholesale. So you've been working at Sonova Phonak for how many years?
Oh, so I moved. So before Sonova, I did kind of start a stint at the university.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, you were an examiner.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You were a lecturer.
Yeah, but I did a bit of like the teaching fellow role at the Auckland University. So I met a lot of students, did a few lectures here and there, mainly supervising their clinical skills. So that was really fun. And then, I jumped into wholesale. I'm just trying to think when I jumped over. I think it's 2022. It was like after COVID-ish, when we were coming off it. So Yeah, so I've been there since 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Going back to your time at the university, I
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
skipped that. I'm sorry.
No, don't be.
What did you find challenging?
So for me, the most challenging part, so I joined the university in 2019 at the end of it. And so we were preparing for 2020, and big things happened in 2020, of course.
2020,
And
yeah.
so, as soon as we started off the semester, we had this whole nationwide lockdown, and we were all forced to move our teaching planning all onto virtual on Zoom. And so that was a bit of a big challenge, I guess, for everybody in the department, of course, but for me as well, because it was actually my first semester of teaching, and I didn't know how to teach, let alone how to do it on Zoom.
Oh my
And so,
gosh. Mhm.
I mean, fortunately, I did do virtual meetings in the past for just my hobbies. So I was kind of used to, how to do Teams calls, how to invite people into rooms, sharing screens and all of that. So that was a very useful skill to have. And that's kind of helped me through that whole COVID era where, you know, most, if not all of our teaching was done virtually,
Mhm.
let alone kind of the masks, the social distancing, the limit on how many people could gather. So when we do practicals, we had to group ourselves into bubbles. And so you'd only see these 9 students for like the whole semester because you couldn't split your groups.
Wow.
So it was a really interesting experience. Yeah.
I can't imagine how challenging that would have been.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, very challenging. And
Yeah.
I still feel really bad for the students that had to kind of
Mhm.
learn a very hands-on degree.
It's so hands-on.
Yeah, right. Just by listening to someone on a microphone and a
Mhm.
video screen and some PowerPoint slides.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're all great clinicians now, thank
Mhm.
goodness.
Mhm.
Means we've done a decent job.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was really hard for the students as well as the staff as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And then, so tell us about your time at Phonak.
Yeah, so I guess you could divide that into 2 eras, you could say. So when I first started at Phonak, I started in New Zealand. So I was kind of one of the sales and audiology reps in the wholesale business. So I was one of 3, I believe. And we just covered the country, looking after different clinics, delivering training, providing support, organizing launch events, so on and so forth.
And then the other era. I feel like we're talking about a Taylor Swift concert.
Yeah, I know.
The Switzerland era.
Yes, the Switzerland era. So, I guess taking me back a year or so, an opportunity came up for a role in Switzerland. And so Switzerland is where the Phonak headquarters is based. And so a position came up for a audiology manager role for the Roger business. And so I was fortunate enough to be chosen for that role. And so since February this year, I've been living in Switzerland.
And so getting that role wasn't without its challenges, Min.
Yeah.
It took a number of months for you to get a visa.
Yes. Let alone like the interview process was very interesting.
Tell us
I
about
distinctly
that.
remember having, I think, 5 or 6 separate interviews for this role, all with different people. And it was really a nice conversation. But then I kind of realized, wow, this is a lot of interviews for one role. And once I got there, I kind of realized why, because it's such a big role, and it's got a lot of responsibility. And so I think they just needed to make sure they're choosing the right person for the role. And so there was that. But then also waiting for the visa, because to get a job in Switzerland, apparently they need to make sure that there's no one in Switzerland that can take the role, and then no one in Europe that can take the role before they can search outside Europe for the role. And so
this makes you a pretty important person then if
apparently.
you're the most eligible for the role.
Yeah,
Love
exactly.
that.
I mean, I must have done something right.
Yeah.
You know?
And so whereabouts in Switzerland do you live?
Yes, so I live at the moment in Zurich. So that's kind of the economic capital of Switzerland, I believe. It's about an hour away from our main office in Stafer. And then we've also got another office, a dedicated Roger office in Morton, and that's about 2.5 hours away.
And for the listeners who don't know who or what Roger is, No, it's not just that old neighbour across the street.
Yes. I wish it was that simple.
Tell the listeners about Roger.
Yeah. So Roger is the name we give for our remote microphone system that we develop at Phonak Communications. So Roger is a remote microphone. I tell people it's like a remote microphone on steroids. It's a super powered remote microphone that really, performance-wise, knocks everybody else out of the park in terms of how well it can provide benefits to people who might have difficulties hearing speech in noise or speech at a distance. So remote microphones are designed to bring the speech closer to the hearing impaired person to ensure that, no matter how loud the noise gets, no matter how far the person speaking is, it's as if you're talking right into or right in front of the person's face, kind of like what you're hearing through this podcast now.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking that as I was listening to you. Yeah. And what is your role with Roger?
Yes, so my official title is an audiology manager for the Roger business. So basically, I'm kind of the global audiologist that looks after the audiological aspects of the remote microphone product. So whether that be validating certain claims that we make in terms of how well it performs, or even providing input on what kind of audiological features we should or shouldn't include in like the next product. And so it's a really, really interesting role. We are kind of a hybrid between marketing, but also R&D. And it's a really, really fun role.
You're enjoying it?
Oh, yeah. I'm loving it.
Yeah. And so you've been in Switzerland almost a year now.
Yes, it'll be, so I started in February. So it'll be, 9 months, 10 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you and I have already had a little bit of a chat about life in Switzerland.
Yes.
There are some quirks.
Yeah.
So tell the listeners about the process for renting an apartment.
Oh, yeah. So fortunately, I had a lot of help from the relocation group that Sonova provides when you get a job over there. So basically, there's an interpreter and there's also someone that helps you shortlist the houses. So I think I had it pretty easy for someone who doesn't speak any German. So I was pretty lucky with that. But basically, you need to shortlist the houses. You need to go to a viewing. Always has to be in person. You can't do any online viewings or anything on a video call or anything like that. You've got to be physically present. It's very competitive, especially in the Zurich city area for those 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartments. And so you're always going to have at least 20, 30 people like viewing the apartments. And you have to submit an application once you've seen the house. And then the people kind of pick based on your resume of sorts.
And you had to tell them what your income is.
Yeah.
And you're also not allowed to apply for a 2-bedroom apartment if you're single.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can apply. It's just that they will tend to give it or offer it to people who need it more, basically.
Yeah.
So younger couples or couples with younger children might get offered those bigger houses compared to the single person who wants to kind of enjoy the luxury of a big house. Not that I could afford one, but yeah, that's the case. And then they also have that income cutoff. I think it's like a third of your income. So if the rent is over a third of your income, then they'll automatically kick you out of the shortlist process. Yeah.
And so you're in a studio apartment at the moment.
Yeah.
And so what is life like in Zurich? What's the cost of living like?
Oh, yeah. I mean, cost of living, I think if you earn money in Switzerland, it's a lot better. If you don't earn money in Switzerland, then the perception is that it's really, really, really expensive, and it is. My mind is still living in New Zealand dollars, and so every time I go shopping, grocery shopping, eating out, I always calculate it into New Zealand dollars, and it's basically double the price. And now I'm like,
wow,
oh dear.
Can you give us some examples?
Yeah. So I went out once and I had what they call a potato roasty. So that's like a kind of potato that's been sliced and pan fried like a little pancake.
Sounds so yummy.
Yeah, I mean, it's seasoned with salt and pepper, so it just tastes like potato and salt.
Yum.
Which, in my head, I could just make in 10 minutes, right? I've got a potato, I've got salt, I've got a frying pan, I can do it. But if you eat it out, then it might cost you about 20 to 25 francs. Which in a New Zealand dollar is like $40 to $50. And so,
Holy
so
moly.
if you think of it from a New Zealand dollar standpoint, you're like,
That's
am I paying $40 for a
potato?
Piece of potato? Yeah, exactly, right?
That's an expensive potato.
Exactly.
I bet it was worth it though.
I mean, It really depends. I mean, it is nice, but then when you're thinking 40 New Zealand dollars, you're like, does this taste $40 worth? Not really.
Oh my gosh.
So if you think about it from a New Zealand dollar standpoint, yeah, it's not really worth it. But I think for the people who live there, it's kind of the norm in terms of how much you spend on food, transport, and everything like that. Yeah.
And there's some quirks about Switzerland.
Yeah, they've got
rules.
they've got some interesting rules for rental properties. So one of the ones that I found later on is that you can't do your laundry on Sunday.
Why is that?
I have no idea.
You still don't know?
I still don't know. Just as a bit of context, in a shared apartment, you might have one washing machine and one tumbler per building. So you might have 10 or 12 households sharing one laundry and one tumbler. So you have to write in the diary when you're going to do your laundry, but you're actually not allowed to do it on Sunday. There are clauses like you can't put washing out on the balcony, and I know that's a rule in some body corps in New Zealand as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, coming from a kind of standalone house, I found that really weird that you can't put your laundry out.
But also you're sharing it with 12 other households. When are you going to find time to...
Yeah, exactly, right.
And so what is your allotted time?
So at the moment, I've just been penciling in Tuesday nights. So this is one lady in our apartment who blocks out every Saturday morning.
Which is everyone's... That's when everyone does washing.
Exactly. And that's when everybody's free, right? And so... I missed that slot, so now I'm kind of the Tuesday night boy.
Yeah.
But once I go back, that might have changed. So we might need to fight over the timetable again.
Rubbed your name out of the book. Haven't seen him in a while. And then tell us about the Swiss death stare.
Oh yes, so I call it the Swiss glare.
The Swiss glare. Sorry,
Swiss glare,
okay.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's when they see you, they observe you, and you're not doing something right, but they're not going to tell you what you've done wrong. And so they just keep staring at you in a nice way, not in an evil way, but they just keep looking at you.
That's the Swiss glare, everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the Swiss glare. So yes, the Swiss glare. So basically when you're doing something wrong, the Swiss people will notice it, but they won't tell you. And so they just look at you in a very weird way until you kind of pick up the social cue that you've done something wrong. But then at the same time, it's quite awkward to go across the road and ask them. You just kind of double check everything that you're doing.
Have you done that? Have you asked?
No. I'm way too introverted to ask. And I'm scared if I ask in English, they'll reply to me in Swiss German and I'll be like, I still don't know what you said.
Yeah.
So no, I haven't kind of found the courage. I haven't found the courage or initiative to ask them yet. Having said that, I've only received the glare once, I think. And it was really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think you received the glare?
I think it's to do with throwing out the trash on a Sunday.
Oh my gosh, how dare you?
I know. I mean, I'm sure there must have been a rule of sorts of that. It's just something on a Sunday is just forbidden. I mean, most of the shops are closed on Sundays as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's kind of a traditional thing with the Reformation, Christianity Reformation happening in Switzerland. And so they tended to close everything on Sundays. And I think they've just kept the tradition. But the people kind of don't really know why. They just still stick to it. It seems to work with them, so I'm not complaining.
And you told me about the sorting of the trash.
Oh, yes.
So tell us about that aspect of Swiss life.
Yes. So just a bit of context. Swiss houses are pretty small. Their fridges are very small as well. And so the culture of fridges...
Would it be about that size?
Yeah, I'd say that would be a typical kind of one person or couple size
fridge.
Sure.
Yeah, which is an under the bench sized fridge.
Yeah, very small fridge. The flip side is that there are grocery stores every 5 minutes on the street in the city. And so the culture is for Swiss people to kind of basically go out, buy their groceries for the day or the next day, come back, eat it, and then rinse and repeat. So they're in the groceries 2-3 times a week. They're not the Costco people who would, do bulk buying for weeks. They're more of the I don't know, dairy shoppers. I don't know what you'd refer to them here, but they go really frequently. And maybe it's because of that, but how you recycle your trash is also really interesting. So, there are days when you have to send out your recycling for paper and cardboard, but then also when you try and recycle your glass bottles, there's no bin that you put them into. You have to actually take the glass bottles with you to a site maybe 300-400 meters away from your house in one direction. And even there, you need to sort the glasses by whether they're brown glasses, green ones, or transparent ones, aluminium cans, so on and so forth. And then your general trash is 500 meters in the other direction.
Oh my gosh.
And so, if you imagine trying to do all your trash in one day, you're getting a lot of steps in. Yeah.
What do you love most about living in Zurich?
Ooh, in Zurich or Switzerland?
Switzerland.
Oh, okay. Well, what I love most. Let's say the trains are always on time. They're very clean. But also Paris is just next door.
That's so cool.
I mean, in theory, you could always wake up and be like, oh, I want a croissant today. Just go to Zurich main station, take a train to Paris, grab a croissant and come back. It'll cost you an arm and a leg, of course, because you're going on last minute. But the fact that you can even dream of doing that compared to when, we're over here, the best place you could go is, Australia at best, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But yeah, like the fact that Zurich and Switzerland is right in the middle of Europe, surrounded by France, Germany, Italy, Austria. That's kind of like a traveler's dream.
And you've done quite a bit of traveling since you've been over there, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've got enough leave and you can always do those short weekend trips, of course. So, I've been all around Switzerland, been to Paris, London, Budapest, Italy, Helsinki. I could say more, but
Just
I won't
keep
because it's just...
What's your favourite place so far, apart from Zurich?
I think Paris was really nice from a visiting standpoint. It is quite messy and a bit kind of dodgy at night, but apart from that, like the scenery's great. The Eiffel Tower at night, it's amazing. The food is really, really good. And Disneyland, of course.
Yes.
And so,
I've actually been to Paris Disney.
Yes.
It was so good.
So nice. I haven't been to Disneyland yet, but it's on my list. It's on my list, yeah.
How long does it take to get from Zurich to Paris?
So it's a 4-hour train. So it's a direct train from Zurich to Paris.
Wow.
Or I think it's only like a 1-hour flight or something like that. And the flights are quite cheap.
Yeah.
Like on some days you can find flights that are cheaper than taking the train.
Wow.
Ironical, but
Is it EasyJet?
Yeah, EasyJet or other kind of low cost airlines I think can offer very cheap deals.
Yeah. And when are you going to come back? Are you going to come back? What's your plan?
I have no idea. I mean, I'm keeping my doors open at the moment. I mean, I'll be heading back in a couple of weeks to get working again because I've been on vacation for a long time. And I'll just hack at it and see what happens. I mean,
how long is your visa?
So the visa, I believe it's annual, and they just renew it every year.
So they have to prove every year that they can't replace you with a local?
Ooh, I don't know. I hope they don't have to do that because that's a lot of effort.
That was a process.
Yeah, that was a process to get it. But I think it's just a matter of renewing the visa. And it's not a fixed term contract either, so I can kind of stick around.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, I'm keeping my options open, seeing what happens. But for now, I mean, it's great. The work's fun,
cool.
And it's a nice city.
Do you have any upcoming trips apart from your trip back to Zurich?
Yeah, so I'm going to London in January, just to see some friends, maybe watch a bit of football. I want to do Iceland at some point, once to kind of see the aurora.
Yes, because you're a photographer.
Yes, it's one of my hobbies, and that's been really nice being in Europe. Is that every country has its own vibe that you can kind of catch. So that's been really cool. And so Iceland's kind of on my bucket list. And then I might also do Italy again. I haven't visited Rome or kind of the southern coast of Italy either. So that's on my to-do list. That's
so cool. For anybody who's on Instagram and wants to follow Min's photography account, let me just find it. It's called Minchy Log. So at MINCHYLOG. And Min takes the most beautiful you're really talented, like
thank you.
multi-talented person.
Thanks for the name drop.
Yeah, I absolutely love living vicariously through you and all of these trips.
I do keep it active so that everyone in New Zealand can see and be like, man, I want to go to Europe.
Yeah, right.
I was like,
Everyone's
"Come
getting
visit me."
FOMO. Oh my gosh. And incredible. Oh, and the food. Min's also a real foodie. So
Quite a foodie.
there's a lot of and coffee connoisseur.
Yes,
You can make a
yes.
flat white, can't
I
you?
can make a flat white.
Yeah.
My latte art's a bit on the fence, but I could do a flat white.
It's better than my coffee pod machine.
Let's not start that conversation.
Overnight plunger.
Oh,
It's me.
no.
I know. You'd be horrified.
We can still be friends.
Yeah, you sure? Min, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today. I'm so grateful that I was able to nab an interview with you before you went back to Zurich.
Yeah, thanks for having me over. It's good. I mean, all these questions, people always ask. Like every time I meet friends, it's always the same question. So maybe I can just
Direct
link them to this podcast
Yeah.
and be like, this is the answers. So
To everything.
listen to it before you come meet me and then ask me questions.
Yeah, love it.
That's my lecturer style. It's like,
So organised.
it's still in me.